To go. Good morning. Happy Election Day. It is November 5th, 2024. My name is Daniel, and I am with VantagePoint AI. We are going to get things started here with our live broadcast. Yes, this is live, and we are going to dig into the artificial intelligence forecast in the VantagePoint software. We're going to go step by step on what we see. We're just going to do some live analysis on the markets, the NASDAQ, the Dow, the S&P. We can look at the US dollar. I've had some requests to look at things like United, Microstrategy. So we'll dig into all kinds of things today. Before I do that, let me just make sure everything is working as designed. If you can hear my voice and I'm coming through to your speakers okay, and everything is working on that side of things, and you can see my screen all right, just let me know over in the chat. This is a live session. I'm looking forward to as much chat as possible, as much chatter as possible, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to type a little hello in there just so I can say hi to everybody that is out there and ready to go. Give everybody a second to get logged into the room, and then we will get things kicked off live today. You know, what's interesting about the markets from an election day perspective is that there's so many things from a technical analysis standpoint and so many things that can influence price from a fundamental standpoint, and so much chatter out there that you know, a lot of traders get a little analysis paralysis, if you will. A little fear sets in, unknown sets in, naturally so. You know, it's something that happens once every 4 years. So all of that is certainly expected. The question that a lot of traders, you know, come to, the conclusion we're trying to come to is, what's the market expected to do? What is the stock that I'm in expected to do? How can I use this information to protect myself? How can I use this information to profit? What do I need to look at? Those are a lot of questions that I hear from both our VantagePoint users as well as traders. And we'll answer some of those questions today. Looks like we've got a lot of people joining the live now, so we should be able to get things kicked off here just momentarily. Hey, Painful Whale, interesting name. Just got the software yesterday. Excited to utilize it. That's fantastic. Welcome to the VantagePoint family. Great news. Hey, Jordan. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Great. All right, looks like we got a lot of people joining. The chat starting to get going. So let me just share my screen. I am going to bring up the VantagePoint software, and I have the E-mini S&P 500 open right now. And I'm going to walk through the analysis. For those of you that don't know or I haven't interacted with before, just to make sure we're on the same page, my name is Daniel. I'm with VantagePoint AI, and in this session, I'm going to do live market analysis based on the forecasted information that the software that I use, VantagePoint, came out at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time last night. I use a patented program that utilizes artificial intelligence in the markets, and I share the analysis on live. So if this is your first time, just let me know in that chat that this is your first time joining. And I would like to say welcome, 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 welcome. Okay, so I've got the S&P 500 up on the screen right now. So if we just take a quick gander at what's been going on here recently, over here on the right-hand side of the chart, we all know that, you know, reading the right-hand side of the chart is the part that confuses a lot of people just in technical analysis in general. I do all my technical analysis right in the VantagePoint software. And for the S&P 500, what we're seeing is that VantagePoint has been indicating bearishness for quite some time. When I say that, what I mean is the blue line here is a predicted moving average, and it indicated that the trend was expected to start moving lower very clearly and accurately back on October 23rd. Now, we know what's happened in the ES in that time, and we can see the price action. We can see what has happened from a candle standpoint. It has certainly gone down. As a matter of fact, from around the open of that day until the close of yesterday, it's down 1.78%. If you're an ES trader and you trade the futures market, you can see that one contract could have produced on the short side about $5,000 in potential gains. These are hypothetical gains. I'm not providing any trading advice. These are for educational purposes, but I want you to understand that very easily, very quickly, we knew what was expected to happen with the S&P 500 from an overall trend standpoint. Now, let's make sure we're clear on what I'm saying when I say trend. What I mean when I say trend is that the average price of the next few days is expected to be up, down, or sideways. We're not talking about one day. We're not talking about during the day. We're talking about the trend of price. And VantagePoint has been indicating that the overall price trend was expected to be bearish since October 23rd. Well, the reason I'm making that point is because you can see right here that blue line is still pointed down, indicating that there's overall bearishness still expected in the S&P 500. Now, the software also predicts the next day's high and low, and VantagePoint is saying that there's an expectation that we could see the ES around that 57.85 mark, to just call it an even number, 57.83, 57.85. You can see that VantagePoint is indicating that prices could easily get up to that level or even higher. One of the determining factors of whether or not prices can move higher is what momentum is doing. Excuse me. And if we're looking at this and we're trying to understand what momentum is forecasted to do, we can use VantagePoint's predicted momentum indicators. And we can see that the one-day momentum is creating higher lows, and it's saying that there is some bullish momentum in price expected today. For those of you that have not seen this analysis before, let me just give you a quick rundown. This blue line is a predicted moving average. That's predicting the trend, right? And the direction of that blue line can provide a lot of valuable information. This is called the predicted neural index, and it's predicting strength. When it's red, it's indicating bearish strength. And then these are three momentum indicators. There's a short one that's predicting one-day momentum. There's a medium one that's a hot pink line. It's predicting two-day momentum. And then there's a long-term predicted difference is what we call it, and it's predicting three-day momentum. So the reason this is valuable to analyze price from these different levels using the VantagePoint software for me is because I want to know what the artificial intelligence is expecting trend, strength, and momentum to be over the next few days. And what we can see is that there's a short-term pop in price expected today on the ES. There is 1 day of bullish momentum and overall 2 and 3 day of bearish momentum. So what we're saying is we can still expect some bullishness today, but the overall trend and expectation to be bearish. Now, one caveat before we get too far down the path, just so we're all on the same page. There's a major fundamental event going on. It's election day. So we've always got to take that into consideration. And the information I'm providing here is based on what the artificial intelligence is saying is expected to happen doing the intermarket analysis. Now, when I say the intermarket analysis, for those of you that don't know what I mean, let me show you. Before VantagePoint does anything in the markets related to the ES, it's looking at several things. And the things that it's looking at, I want to show you a quick graph right here. To make any assessment or any forecast around the S&P 500, this is what is being analyzed. You can look at this list. I lost my pen. Let me find my pen. Here it is. Gold is being analyzed, the price of gold and how it impacts the S&P 500, right? The US dollar, the euro, it's looking at these major markets to figure out how they influence the S&P 500, as well as some other things that we're talking about, like Air Lease stock or Expeditor's stock, Cedar Fair. So you can see there is a plethora of items that the AI has gone out. It's scanned over 10,000 markets around the world to figure out what is influencing the S&P 500 the most. And this is for people that haven't seen this before. So if you've seen this before or you're a VantagePoint user, then you know that this is a level of analysis that is humanly impossible, and it is a patented technology that nobody else in the world is doing. So when I look at these indicators, all of these indicators have been enhanced with that artificial intelligence analysis and generated these predictions. So if we stop and we think about that, if we think about what you and I and all these other traders around the world are trying to do in the markets, we're trying to gain an edge. We're trying to level the playing field. We're trying to win in a dog-eat-dog, zero-sum world. We got to have an advantage. right? A legal, ethical advantage, nothing wrong with that. The artificial intelligence is providing predictive information around what the trend, the strength of the trend, and the price is expected to be so that I can draw my conclusions. Now, this AI has been working since 1987, and it's been available for you out there since 1991. So it has seen many, many presidential elections. It has analyzed price leading up to many, many presidential elections and other things. It's analyzed price after, through those elections. The accuracy on these forecasts is up to 87.4% as verified by third parties, which means regardless of what's going on from an election day standpoint, in my opinion, this is pretty darn valuable. So we're going to do some analysis today. I've got several things to look at. You can pop some things in the chat if you want to, and we can walk through step by step what I see and how I interpret several of the indicators in the VantagePoint software. So what I can say from the ES is we're expecting an overall trend to still continue bearish with a little bit of bullishness in short-term price today, and VantagePoint is predicting that so that we can say, you know what? Overall, this trend is still down, even though there may be a little bit of bullish run. If you're losing, if you're holding the SPY and you're down, well, today feels pretty good for you because it come back a little bit. But that doesn't mean that the overall trend is expected to reverse based on VantagePoint. Now, some people always ask me, like, well, what is pushing prices higher then? Anybody here have that question? If you've got that question about the S&P 500, that if the artificial intelligence is saying the trend is expected to continue lower and there's bearish strength, but momentum is bullish, what is pushing price? If that's a question you have, put it in the chat. I got my eye on the chat. I'm trying to thank you for the feedback, Barry. I'm trying to do both, but I also want to provide you with information that you can use and answers to the questions that you might have. So if you haven't gotten involved in the chat before, by all means, jump in. I love the interaction, and I love to be able to provide you the information that you need from the VantagePoint software. Heck, you may not have VantagePoint, so this could be your only opportunity to use the artificial intelligence. Jump in the chat, and let's talk about it, all right? So if you have that question, let me show you an answer really quickly. When you've got indicators that some are saying bullish, some are saying bearish, that have a conflict, if you will, that means price is conflicted, and support and resistance, or supply and demand, however you want to call it, are going to push price around a little bit easier. So what I've added to the chart are support and resistance indicators that I like to use in the VantagePoint software. They're add-on indicators, but what they help me do is they help me see the major support and resistance levels in price. And how it lets me see it. There's red arrows indicating resistance points with red dotted lines connecting those arrows. There are green arrows showing support points with green dotted lines connecting those support points. There's also some shaded green and red boxes, and that helps me understand what we call verified support and resistance, or zones where prices can tend to slow down. So when I look at this, I can see very easily what's happened here. There was a support point set back here. What day is this? Let me look. October 2nd. Support point set on October 2nd, right? Bearishness had come down, created a low with two higher lows next to it to the left and two higher lows to the right, saying there is a support point. Then 1, 2, 3, 4 days later, we got one almost at the same exact point. That makes this low and this verified support point even stronger. Why? Price retested it, and then bounced off it and went higher. That draws a line in the sand, or as you can see in the VantagePoint software, a dotted line in the software all the way reaching into the future so that you can understand whether or not price in the future can be impacted by this. Yes, that's right. Barry, I see your question around it. Can you watch this? Is it being recorded? It is in YouTube. If you subscribe to the VantagePoint channel, anybody that's in here that hasn't already subscribed to the VantagePoint channel, just hit subscribe on our page, and you'll be able to get notified when I'm going to do these sessions. And of course, you'll have access to all of our other recorded live sessions in the past. Thank you for asking that question, Barry. I just saw it. My team jumped on it and answered it for you, but I wanted everybody to know that that's available there for you. All right, so if we've got this support point very clearly drawn from way back here on October 2nd, today is November 5th, so that's over a month ago. Look what price did. It fell right down to that support point and then stalled. And then the next day it came down and tested that support point. And look, folks, look at this. The October 2nd support point propped up price yesterday. So we got 1, 2, 3 days retesting that support point, and it is standing strong. Do you know why? Because there's a conflict between momentum and trend. There's a conflict between price, and that causes support to be stronger. And in this case, without the right bearish momentum and bearish volume, it's going to be very difficult to break this. And we already talked about how the one-day momentum had shifted. Well, if I pop my volume on my chart, I can look and see that I've got decreasing bearish volume, which means I had bullish volume yesterday, day before, Friday, because today is Tuesday, and then bearish volume a little bit less yesterday. So I don't have a whole ton of increasing bearish volume, and I don't have a whole ton of bearish momentum pushing on that support point to break it. So what happens? It hits it and it bounces and it moves up towards that predicted high that VantagePoint provided our users at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time last night. Now I'm doing this analysis on the ES so that everybody can see where I come up with my conclusions. And my conclusion in this case is the overall trend is expected to be bearish with a short-term pop in price today. And I believe that's what we're getting at this point. I don't know. I haven't cross-checked it since I got into this session, but yeah. Yep. There we go. 55 handles. We 57.35. 57.35. 57, is that where it is right now? 57.98. There we go. 57.98. Right there. sitting basically at the top of that resistance level, at the top of that predicted high and below that old support point that's going to act like resistance and keep it under 5,800 for the time being. So it's literally sitting right in there. And for those of you that don't know about support and resistance, remember old support points become new resistance. Okay, and that's what we're dealing with, and price is sitting right there. So we're bouncing in this channel as we have been for 3 days. So consolidation going on based on overall trend down and bullish pop in price. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, let me get this out of the way. There we go. I'm going to go open up the NASDAQ really quickly, the NQ. And I am going to add all the charts that we just looked at and all the indicators that we just looked at onto the NASDAQ. I'm just going to, save it as a default here. I'm going to actually put it and apply it to every chart that I have. This way, this is just a shortcut. For those of you that have the VantagePoint software, this is basically going to come up on every chart that I'm looking at now so that we're all on the same page here. And I don't have to add those indicators one by one. There you go. So what we're looking at right now is the E-mini NASDAQ. And funny, but our volume profile looks the same. Our momentum profile looks the same. We still have some bearishness in overall strength, and the trend is still expected to move lower. However, we have the same kind of support down here. Matter of fact, we have increasing levels of support, which means this channel is getting tighter for the NASDAQ. We also have the same 3-day retest of price and support, and we have a predicted high that's expected to be higher. So when we look at this and we compare this analysis to what we saw on the ES, very quickly can see that we're expecting the same thing. Support is strong. There's not enough bearish momentum and not enough bearish volume to push it through that support point yet. I say yet because, as the market changes, this is important to understand, is as the market changes, the artificial intelligence will take into account those global influencing factors and generate predictions that are highly accurate. Folks, we're talking predictions in VantagePoint are up to 87.4% accurate. In case anybody's wondering when I say highly accurate, that's what I mean, regardless of market conditions. So again, this is giving me the same kind of assessment from a NASDAQ standpoint. I can expect higher prices today. That's something that very easily can be seen right here on the chart. VantagePoint is predicting a high. You can see predicting a high of 20,279 or higher based on the fact that we've got a little bit of a positive move on the one-day momentum. And then from a Dow standpoint, here is the Dow and the same kind of analysis. Now, VantagePoint forecasted the Dow down, back here, and it's been falling more so than some of the other indices. And you can see it's even fallen and broken through support, if you will. So we know that already that support point has been broken, but we're seeing momentum bullish for quite some time here on the 1 day, the 2 day as well, and the 3 day is still bearish. So we're seeing more consolidation around price, if you will. We're seeing more confusion amongst the indicators, which means these support points are going to mean something. Here's a support point right here. Price broke it 1 day, couldn't stay below it for our 2 day, went back above it, broke it again, which means we're expecting the same thing, popping back up to the predicted high in VantagePoint. And VantagePoint is predicting right now 42,268 on the Dow. The Dow is at 42,269. Look, let me show you. This is VantagePoint's predicted high for today, and it came in on 11/4 at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Right now, the Dow is at 42. Where's the Dow? 42,272 or something like that. It was at 42,269. It's vacillating right around that predicted high, which is also, folks, that support point acting as resistance. So no matter how we slice it, we're getting a little bit of pop in price today as the momentum is indicating, and that support is propping up price. Very, very valuable information going into the end of the day today. If you're making the choice to hold these positions through the end of the day today, then obviously it's a high risk maneuver, but the artificial intelligence is saying overall trend down, bullish pop in price in the short term. Hopefully that's valuable for you, because what you need, in my opinion, is information around what the market is expected to do, not what the market has done. And that's what VantagePoint specializes in for me. I use this software to figure out what it's expected to do. Here is the US dollar, right? There's been a lot of talk about the US dollar. VantagePoint forecasted an uptrend in the US dollar quite some time ago. If you're a Forex trader, if you're a futures trader, heck, if you're a trader in general, the US dollar is having a major influence on you. It influences every market around the world. Period, point blank. If you don't agree with that, that's okay. We can agree to disagree, but the artificial intelligence has told us it is influencing everything out there. And I think we can agree on that. However, here's the move on the US dollar. I don't know if you've ever seen this much bullishness on the US dollar in quite some time. Right, a lot of people were talking about the devaluing of the dollar, and the increase in the dollar here is being propped up by the government. All that is conjecture. In my opinion, I read the charts, and what the charts were saying is on 9:30 there's expected bullishness, and at 6:30 p.m. last night the answer was reversed. So you have the beginning of a new bullish trend and the end of a new bullish trend, all on this single chart. If we used this forecast just like I laid out for you, look, crossover to the upside, uptrend, neural index agreed, bullishness, increasing momentum, 1, 2, and 3 day, bullish, increasing volume. Look at the volume bars turning green over this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at this. Increasing bullish volume, bouncing off an old support point. See that old support point back here? Prices came down, bounced off it, tested it, retested it, and boom. We got very, very favorable conditions for bullishness on 9:30. And then at 6:30 last night, VantagePoint said, okay, party's over. Bearishness expected in the dollar as of today. VantagePoint was indicating a little bit of a pullback in the dollar and predicted a low of 103.502 for today for the dollar. Based on what we're seeing from the dollar, 103.475, right down in that bottom part of that range, which that means the dollar fell as VantagePoint indicated it would. Look, guys, wash, rinse, repeat. The blue line crossed below, The neural index is red. Predictive differences are rolling over and pointed down bearishly. Decreasing volume that turned bearish. We've got all the makings of bearishness expected today on the dollar. And we got, so far at this point, bearishness on the dollar. This is why I love this software. In case anybody is wondering how valuable it is, you're looking at it right now, because this is a very valuable trend. If we go just crossover to crossover and say, what could this have produced for one contract at a time? $3,200 in hypothetical gains trading long the US dollar in the futures. That is a substantial move, and a lot of you are trading 2 or 3 contracts at a time, and you can see it's just a multiplier and does very, very, very well, especially utilizing this kind of information. By the way, if you're in this session right now and you can hear my voice and there's a certain market or a stock or something that you want to take a look at, do me a favor, pop it in the chat, and if we've got chance today to dig into it, we will certainly dig into it. Painful Well says, is there a day trading strategy? Absolutely. We're looking at the dollar. Let me show you. We got major bearishness on the dollar. Very clear. I'm zooming in for you so that you can see here's a predicted high and predicted low. Right? This is what VantagePoint predicted today for the dollar. If I click on this with my cursor, you can see that there is a midpoint right here. 103,697. 103,697. I'm going to show you, I'm going to remove some of these so that you can see a little bit clearer. And I'm going to take a line and I'm going to drop it at 103,697. Okay? I almost hit it exactly. There we go. Apply that. Here's the midpoint of that predicted bar. We got everything saying bearishness. We've got a predicted high that's slightly higher and a predicted low that's slightly higher. So what we're saying is basically we've got an equal size day today expected from a range standpoint. I've got my midpoint. I'm looking for the dollar to open somewhere above that midpoint so that I can short it. And when it does, I'm shorting it past that midpoint and taking my profits in the bottom half of that bar. Whether you grab the whole bar, part of the bar, doesn't matter to me. What we're saying is a successful day trade starts above that midpoint, closes below that midpoint, and you're done. And by this point in the day, it's already happened. It's already happened, right? Think about that. It's already happened. You would have already had a successful day trade on the day just using the analysis with that midpoint strategy of that predicted high and predicted low. I know it was a quick run through, Painful Whale, and for anybody else that's day trading, it was a quick run through, but I think you understand it, and I can do some day trading analysis if for some reason you want to dig into that more down the road. All right, down the road, we can certainly do that. All right, so I see some tickers rolling in. We'll get a chance to get to those. I do have some other requests before we get into those, like United Continental. A lot of people, we've been talking about United Continental here at VantagePoint for weeks and weeks and weeks. You can see that this forecast goes back. I'm scrolling back on the chart so you can see it goes way, 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 way back. The question that people have is after this trend, because this trend is up pretty substantially. Last night's close, it's roughly 90%, give or take, hypothetical gains on that. A substantial move forecasted from the artificial intelligence. But the AI can forecast bearishly just as well as it can forecast bullishly, okay? So the question people have is what's going on with United Continental? Well, as promised, we're going to dig in and just take a look. We're going to do the analysis of the indicators that we've already talked about today. We've got the blue line flattening out and pointed down. Even though it's still shaded green, we've got consolidation expected in United Continental. Everybody can see that with that blue line. Pardon me, the shape of that blue line is important. Let me get some water really quickly. Okay. The shape of that blue line is important because it's starting to move towards that gray line. It doesn't mean we've got bearishness expected. It just means price is consolidating. The trend, this big bullish trend that's been going for weeks and weeks and weeks now, is consolidating. 3 months may have been a little bit too much. There we go. 3 months is better. It's been consolidating off of this, looks like probably a 52-week high. It is a 52-week high. So a little profit taking happening. No problem. There's an old resistance point up here that goes back over a year. It's still on the chart, which means that resistance point is indicating that price can slow down when it gets up there. Even though this is a 52-week high, it's not an all-time high. for United Continental. So we've got some consolidation in the trend. We've got some resistance pushing down on that trend. We've got a predicted high and a predicted low that are lower than the previous days. That's what we're seeing here based on this. We've got some bearish strength and bearish momentum trying to take over. Not all the way, because a one-day momentum is still consolidated. And we've got volume pretty much stagnant. Little decrease in volume, but nothing too crazy. Which means we can expect some consolidation in price, and we can, as a matter of fact, if I take yesterday's close and I just draw a line, it's right middle of that candle. We can expect price today to be right there where I drew that little pink line. Let me zoom in for you guys, and I'll draw it again so you can see it. This is the close. We have consolidation in the trend, weakness in a lot of areas, which means we can expect prices to be right here on the United Continental based on this analysis. I'm just reading what the charts are telling me and then making a decision. If I'm holding United Continental, there's several things that you can do in this situation. If you're holding the underlying, sorry, jumping around a little bit here. If you're holding the underlying, you can certainly set a stop loss below that predicted low and use, heck, you could use this resistance point right here that is now turned into support. You see this red arrow? You set a stop loss just below that line, because if things fall below that old resistance point that now is acting like support, then I probably want to get stopped out, right? Lock in some gains. You can do that. You can just exit it and say, you know what? 90% gain on the underlying asset, 250, 300% gain on the option. Enough for me. I'm hopping out. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You can start writing covered calls at this point to take advantage of this indecision and take advantage of this consolidation to cover any loss and mitigate any loss from holding that stock and make some income by writing some covered calls. A lot of different strategies to deploy when you see this kind of consolidation at the end of a long bullish trend like we're seeing in United Continental. All right. What else we got? Microstrategy, another one a lot of people are interested in talking about. Now, Microstrategy is doing some phenomenal things, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion. I'm not providing any trading advice, but from a MicroStrategy trend standpoint, you can see that we got a profit-taking opportunity recently where if we just take that whole trend beginning to end, produced over 73% gains on the VantagePoint forecast, right? In the VantagePoint forecast. So when we run through this, and obviously we're looking at this to say, do we have a profit-taking opportunity? Absolutely. From a trading standpoint, that's VantagePoint saying there's a profit-taking opportunity, or a covered call writing. If there's options on the stock, you know, this is a small cap trade on the Russell, so this is something that you've got to consider. But what VantagePoint is saying is overall, long-term on MicroStrategy, I'm putting the triple cross, which is a long-term indicator, there is some consolidation going on here. And if you're an investor and this is something you're holding long-term, expect some consolidation, expect some drawdown, but not expecting a full turn in the long-term trend. If you're a swing trader, VantagePoint is indicating this is a good reversal point and a profit-taking opportunity. So remember, your strategy and your rules on how you trade the market are dependent on your trade plan, not mine. So if you're a long-term investor, you're using this information to make some decisions from an investment strategy. If you're a day trader, you're using this information in a certain way. If you're a swing trader, you're using this information in a certain way. Remember, VantagePoint is not telling you what to do with your money, which is one of the things I love about this. It's telling you what to expect from a market standpoint so you can make the decisions about your money. And I get so many questions. Let me just hold on for a second. Let me just level with everybody here. And if you're not listening, listen up really quickly. I get a lot of questions about trading bots. Is VantagePoint going to create a trading bot? Can you do this automatically for me so I don't have to think about it? Folks, if those things really worked, you wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. If there was a way to make millions and millions of dollars by letting a robot do your analysis and do your trading for you, you would have heard about it by now, and there'd be billions of people using it, okay? That's not what VantagePoint is, and no, this is not a trading bot. This is designed to give you information so you can make the decisions about your money the way it should be. just a little, thank you for entertaining my rant there for a second. I just hear so many questions about bots and things like that that create, you know, unnecessary angst and hope for people. We're not talking about trading off of hopium. We're talking about using artificial intelligence to make better trade decisions. And that's what I'm trying to help you do. All right, let's keep on rolling. Hershey was another one that had requested in the past. And now, for some of you that don't know, Hershey has been on a major downtrend since September 17th. As a matter of fact, this downtrend is a very, very low point for Hershey. And I believe, personal belief, is it has a lot to do with the cocoa market. In recent months, years, the cocoa market has just exploded from a value of cocoa because the demand for cocoa has remained, but the supply has decreased. Now, we know how supply and demand works, and if you don't, happy to give you a quick run through. But as supply stays the same and demand increases, price increase. As supply decreases but the demand stays the same, price increases. If demand decreases and supply increases, price drops. And what we had recently was a major supply drop in cocoa from a cocoa farming standpoint, export standpoint, which made the price of cocoa go up dramatically. Well, what do you think Hershey uses mass quantities of? So it's been dropping pretty drastically. The good news is, based on what VantagePoint is seeing, is that there is some leveling off of this trend. Now, we've seen it before at this support point, at this support point, at this support point, and it doesn't hold for very long. VantagePoint the entire time is indicating bearishness to the downside, major bearishness, and it's not changing its tune, although there is some major consolidation from the trend that we've got to consider. Which, if you're not shorting cocoa or you're not writing covered calls on cocoa, then this is just a watch list opportunity, because when the artificial intelligence finally indicates a bottom and crosses to the upside and the indicators change, that could be a very, very good buying opportunity for Hershey. Again, just my opinion, not advice. So this is a watch list stock for me until the artificial intelligence says, we've got increasing bullish momentum, we've got increasing volume, the trend is expected to move higher, and there's strength in that trend. When all of those things agree, and we've got confluence in those indicators generated from the artificial intelligence, because take a look at this. Look, if I go into the market details here, for Hershey specifically, you can see that McCormick is being analyzed, Hasbro, Packard, Coca-Cola, Gold, Heco, so many different markets than what we're looking at the ES. The AI is saying these are the things that drive Hershey. These are the markets that influence Hershey from an intermarket analysis standpoint. When those things line up, then at that point, this becomes one of those stocks that I like to take a look at. So it's on a watch list for me for now, but nothing doing as we speak, unless you're writing covered calls and creating some income. If you are writing covered calls on Hershey, that started back here on 9/17, and it's just been an income producing opportunity since then. All right. Glad we're on the same page there. Let's take a look and see what else we got in the chat. Hey, Alex, glad you're here. All right, so a lot of tickers going on. A lot of conversation going on. Okay, so we'll get rid of some of those chats that make no sense. Big upside potential. Dell. We can take a look at Dell here in a second. Let's look at Apple really quickly and dig into Apple. If we're going to look at Apple, one of the things that we've got to understand about Apple is, when did VantagePoint forecast Apple bearishly? Look, take a look at this. And guys, if you're here to learn, by all means, please jump into the chat. Let's talk about what you want to learn about, but let's not spam this account. Let's not spam each other. You know, at the end of the day, we're trying to help as many traders as we can. If you want the help, jump in. I'm glad to help you. Otherwise, maybe go do that somewhere else. I love having you guys here, and I love providing as much insight as we can. And if you're looking for real help, hopefully you're finding it. Do me a favor. In the chat, if you're finding this is valuable information, valuable analysis, Give me a thumbs up, give me a heart, give me something so that myself and our team can hear from you live that this is information that you can use. That's what we're here for, right? You can tell I haven't made an offer. I don't have a package to sell you. I'm showing you my interpretation from VantagePoint, and it's helpful. I'm happy to keep doing it. Here's Apple. Look, blue line crossed below back here, 1024. The neural index was red. Thank you for that. The predictive differences were pointed down saying bearish momentum. So we knew Apple was expected to fall. If you unfortunately, thank you, Timothy, thank you. If you unfortunately held Apple through this fall, man, it hurt. It's like 3-4%, 4% to the downside right there from the time that VantagePoint indicated Apple was expected to move lower. So if you're still holding Apple because you're an investor, then I hope you're writing covered calls or you're doing some, maybe buying some puts to mitigate those losses. But the artificial intelligence was very, very clear around what Apple was expected to do. Well, look at it now. Check out the support point. What is Apple doing? It came down, broke that old support point, bounced off of it. Came down, tested and broke that old support point, couldn't close below it. So Apple has been trying to close below that support point for 2 days in a row. Well, with decreasing bearish volume, look, this is trying to push below that, and then boop, we got that decrease in bearish volume. At the same time, we got that 1 day bullish momentum. What would you expect Apple to do based on a higher predicted high and a higher predicted low in the artificial intelligence? Would you be expecting Apple to bounce today like we saw on the NASDAQ? Right? The NASDAQ and the ES both did the same thing. We're seeing the same signature from the artificial intelligence in Apple. It's safe to say that by now, everybody that's on this session should be able to look at that and say, yeah, there's major bearishness. The overall trend is expected to be bearish, but we can expect a short-term bounce based on that support, based on that decreasing bearish volume, and based on that increasing bullish momentum on the 1 day momentum indicator, and a predicted high and a predicted low expected to be higher. Where is Apple? Let's see. Apple, all right. High of the day, 223.95. VantagePoint predicted 222.79. Low of the day is 221.14. VantagePoint predicted a low of 220.91. So if I draw a little fake candle right here, this is what Apple's doing today. Currently up from yesterday's close, and that is basically what a candle would look like. I drew it in with a pink line. VantagePoint forecasted all that other stuff last night at 6:30. So if you're not using the VantagePoint software, I think it's safe to say that there's a major advantage to using it when you see this kind of market action. Today's election day. So you've got to make some decisions around your positions by 4 o'clock in a lot of cases. And if you're a futures trader, maybe you got a little bit longer time. Heck, maybe some of you want to trade through it. That's up to you. But based on the artificial intelligence, we're seeing that short-term bullish strength and overall bearishness in price and trend. Nvidia, somebody in the chat popped in something about Nvidia. They wanted to see it, Barry. Here's the Nvidia forecast from a VantagePoint standpoint. And when we're looking at Nvidia, we can see there was a nice bullish trend. There was a crossover profit-taking opportunity, 1031. And then prices came down and set this support and started pushing up higher. VantagePoint's predicting Nvidia today could go up to 141.04. 141.04. The high of the day is 140.37 currently right now with Nvidia. In case anybody's wondering how I got the 131.04, I put my cursor on this and you can see over here it says here is the predicted high for 11.5. Here's the midpoint, here's the predicted low, the range, and then I've got my volatility information for my options trading. And what this is basically saying is that, you know, there is a great opportunity to sell some options on this based on what we're seeing from an IV percentile standpoint, which we're not going to get into in this session, but you can see that Nvidia has a bullish strength indicator, has bullish momentum on the 1 day, consolidated momentum on the 2 day, and bearish momentum on the 3 day with, we switched from bearish volume to bullish volume, not increasing, but we're getting some bullishness and consolidation across the board with a new support point. That's a short-term pop in price. Not necessarily an overall trend reversal just yet. As a matter of fact, the long-term triple cross indication on Nvidia is saying consolidation. So consolidation sideways from a long-term standpoint, from a swing trading standpoint. My 2-day crossover, which is my predicted moving average, is saying consolidation, wait and see on Nvidia. If you're an investor in Nvidia, then you're probably not mad about what's going on, because consolidation means not going down, right? If you're, when I say an investor, I mean long-term hold. Well, there's some opportunity there on Nvidia. Here is eBay. Now, eBay had a really fantastic trend that produced very well, profit-taking opportunity, and then it just fell off a cliff. Now, I want to point something out to everybody here. VantagePoint was certainly bearish eBay leading up to earnings, and then we had this huge earnings gap down on eBay that if you trade through earnings using VantagePoint, you can see that produced very, very well. As a matter of fact, to the downside, when that day closed out, look at this, 12% to the downside in less days. That's good information to have. But what is it saying now? Similar signature to Nvidia. Look, it found a bottom. Momentum is shifting. Strength is shifting. So we're not bullish eBay yet, but based on what we're seeing from the predictive indicators starting to change, eBay for me hits a watch list. So when the artificial intelligence says, all right, A, this gap is filled, and B, the artificial intelligence is indicating bullishness, now eBay becomes a new opportunity to the upside. Not yet, but you can see the predictive indicators are starting to shift. Now, I never try to outpredict the predictors, but it sure is valuable information. When I see those shifting, this could be something to keep an eye on, okay? This could be something to keep an eye on. Hopefully that is valuable for you. PFE, coin, let's see, PFE and coin. I'm just looking at the chat. Some people had put some tickers in the chat, and I've got about 2 minutes here that I can take a look at some of these things. So let's take a look at some of these things. Here's Pfizer. Pfizer forecasted to the downside on what day was this? 10/18. All right, so we've got a current downtrend forecasted and more bearishness expected even through that earnings call information. We got all the bearishness expected. We have a support point that was broken down here. We have an old support point that dates way, way back here. So right now, where I would expect Pfizer, look, I used that support and resistance region. You guys can see it, this light green region. If I put that in my predicted candle, this, based on the signature that I'm seeing and things pointed sideways and bearish, is where I would expect Pfizer to trade today based on this predictive information. VantagePoint is also saying we're expecting, this is probably one of the more bearish stocks we've looked at today as a group from a Pfizer standpoint, that there's still some bearishness left in this. So again, based on what the AI is saying, not looking good. Not looking good for Pfizer. Reminder, election day, don't forget that piece as you manage your risk. Trading is about managing risk before it's about making profits. Don't forget that. Here is Coinbase. So when we look at Coinbase, we've got a bearish crossover to the downside. This was a post-earnings type of information where it fell off and then just stopped, right? Well, look what happened with everything. After it fell off and just stopped, we got predicted high and predicted low, green. Neural index, green. Bullish volume from previous bearish volume. Short-term momentum shift. Not the 2-day and the 3-day, but short-term momentum shift. Looks a lot like Nvidia, looks a lot like the ES, expecting a quick pop in price today. The overall trend potentially could continue lower, but short-term bullishness in price today on Coinbase. So if Coinbase is up today, you might say, well, what do I do? Well, it's 6:30 tonight after the software updates. Tomorrow after the election results and all that conversation happens. 72 hours later, I'm jumping back into Coinbase to see what's going on with it if this is something that you're holding. Now, one thing I want to point out, earnings events, elections, major fundamental type events, I always look at the markets 72 hours after that event from a technical analysis standpoint. The reason for that is we know that the markets are being influenced by those inner markets. I look at Coinbase. you can see that there's a whole different set of intermarkets driving Coinbase, Zscaler, Cognitive, Confluent, Rapid7, Toast, Riot Blockchain, Grayscale, Ethereum Trust, all influencing Coinbase, right? Well, guess what? If those things are influencing the price of Coinbase, when there's a major fundamental event like earnings or the election, those things are less impactful because of trader sentiment. There's a short-term increase in volatility because of that fundamental event. Well, after 72 hours, guess what? That fundamental event is no longer impacting price like it did. And those intermarkets take back over again, which is why this information is so valuable, both short-term and long-term. But I do wait that 72 hours in case anybody is wondering, okay? What else we got? Let me see if there's anything else. A lot of tickers. I can't get to all these tickers. Matter of fact, I'm out of time now, but let me see Dell. That was the last one. XRP cryptos, but isn't XRP especially hung on the SEC lawsuit? Yeah, you know, Ripple is certainly has a major influence going on with it. But other cryptos, you know, like you can see that this is Ripple. Even with the lawsuit, there's some opportunity to make money. VantagePoint is indicating bearishness with some short-term bullishness bounce based on that support point. Overall, VantagePoint is saying prices are expected to remain at 50 cents. 502824 is the point at where that support point is, and prices are expected to vacillate on Ripple. And then the other one was Dell. I almost forgot, but I didn't. Here's the Dell forecast, and right now I can tell you Dell is in a channel. It has been in a channel, and it's trying to fight its way out of that channel, but based on what it's showing right now, it hasn't been able to do that, right? VantagePoint is indicating short-term bullishness in the trend, but weakness in price, bullishness in momentum, and weakness in volume. So you've got a lot of indicators in disagreement for Dell Technologies on the latest forecast, which tell me that prices are going to stay right where they are. Consolidation on prices right here in this region based on the fact that we have indicators in disagreement. And by the way, just so we're all on the same page, VantagePoint predictive indicators not agreeing with each other is also very valuable market information. And a lot of traders look at that and say, well, it's not telling me anything. Oh, yes, it is. If you ask 10 people how to do something a certain way and you get 7 different answers, you still don't have your answer, right? Well, if you ask 7 predictive indicators what direction the market is expected to go tomorrow and over the next 3 days, and you get 3 different answers, some bearish, some consolidated, some bullish, you have your answer, and it is sideways, folks. It is an indecision type of situation. That's what's going on currently with Dell based on the predictive indicators is sideways. A little bit of bullishness here, a little bit of bearishness there, but overall, prices in a channel. Well, hopefully this was helpful. As I said earlier, you know, this is the kind of analysis that I do day in and day out in the VantagePoint software, and I'm trying to share a little bit of it with you. If you like what you see or you got questions and I didn't get to your questions, give us a call. We put the phone number in the chat, or you could just go to VantagePointForecast.com and we'll reach out to you and answer your questions. Until the next time we chat, I just want to say thank you for being here. Hopefully you're having a good day today. If you're part of the VantagePoint family, thank you for being part of the VantagePoint family. And as usual, thank you for letting me give you the view from my vantage point. Have a great day, everybody.